Just moments ago, Peter Phillips, the often overlooked grandson of Queen Elizabeth II, stepped into the spotlight with a revelation so incendiary it could rewrite the future of the monarchy. A command issued by King George VI, long buried within the royal archives, was never meant to see the light of day. But now, it threatens to unravel the very thread holding the royal family together. And Prince Harry is at the center of it all. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Until now, Peter Phillips had been largely invisible to the public eye, an obedient royal descendant, with no title, no controversy, and no interest in spotlight. But that anonymity shattered when he stepped in front of reporters and held up a single document sealed with the crest of King George VI. With no prepared statement and no elaborate fanfare, he simply confirmed it was real. The impact was immediate and explosive. This was no ordinary royal relic. It was a direct command, never before disclosed, and it allegedly held instructions that would shake the foundation of succession itself. For decades, whispers had surrounded the archives hidden within Windsor and Balmoral, murmurs of wartime secrets, sealed letters, and generational warnings from monarchs past. No one expected this command to surface, especially not from someone like Peter, who had no royal obligations to fulfill or defend. Buckingham Palace, sources say, was caught entirely off guard. Neither the king's senior aides nor the press office had been briefed. No contingency plan had been prepared for a bombshell of this nature. The command, though brief, was clear, and more importantly, it pertained to Prince Harry's standing within the monarchy. Suddenly, the already fragile royal dynamics were thrown into chaos. Within hours, speculation erupted across media and social channels. Was this the final push to strip Harry of his remaining ties? Had King George foreseen a prince who would one day renounce his royal duties and abandon the crown? And most critically, what did the rest of the royal family know, and when? As the palace scrambled to issue a neutral statement, urging the public to avoid misinterpretation of private historical materials, Peter refused to offer clarification or follow-up. He simply disappeared from view, leaving behind a storm that could not be silenced. But what exactly did King George command? And why has it remained hidden for over 70 years? The trail leads us deep into a forbidden chapter of royal history. He was never a working royal, never wore a crown, but Peter Phillips was always watching. For decades, he stood on the sidelines, silent and compliant. So why now? What pushed the Queen's eldest grandson to expose a royal secret that could fracture the House of Windsor beyond repair? Unlike his cousins William and Harry, Peter Phillips was born into the royal family without the burden or privilege of a title. His mother, Princess Anne, insisted on raising him without the formal trappings of royalty, believing it would give him freedom. And yet, that freedom came at a cost. He was never quite inside the circle, nor truly outside of it. He watched the rituals, observed the power plays, and bore witness to conversations that were not meant for his ears. Over time, he became the royal family's silent observer, present but passive, loyal yet forgotten. But what no one realized was how much Peter had seen, and more dangerously, how much he remembered. His bond with Queen Elizabeth II was never flaunted, but it was real. In her later years, she entrusted him with quiet responsibilities, managing minor estate affairs, organizing low-profile family gatherings, overseeing documents that others considered trivial. But to Peter, these were breadcrumbs. And after her death, when the ceremonial fog lifted and the grief settled, Peter found himself drawn to the one place she always treated as sacred, her personal study in Windsor. It was during one of these estate reviews, deep inside a locked vault lined with forgotten paperwork, that Peter discovered something sealed in a velvet folder, stamped with the insignia of King George VI. What he held in his hands was not ceremonial, nor trivial. It was a royal directive, classified, coded, and ominous. He didn't speak of it, not to his sister, not to his mother, not to the courtiers who orbited the family like satellites. Instead, he kept it hidden, agonizing over its meaning, the weight it carried, and the chain reaction it could unleash. Peter had always played it safe, always chosen silence. But the tide had shifted after Queen Elizabeth's passing. The family, fractured already by Prince Harry's departure and the fallout of the Oprah interview, seemed poised on a knife's edge. Peter, though not in the spotlight, had quietly resented how his cousin was treated, how the palace that preached loyalty and tradition turned its back on its own. Perhaps it was empathy, perhaps it was guilt. But either way, the letter began to feel like something he could no longer keep to himself. Still, even with the document in hand, Peter hesitated. He wavered, torn between loyalty to the family and a growing sense that truth mattered more than unity. He needed clarity. So, in the most uncharacteristic move of his life, he reached out to the one man the document seemed destined to impact, Prince Harry. The meeting, held in secret, has yet to be confirmed by the palace, but insiders suggest it took place in a private estate during Harry's brief visit to the UK, weeks before Peter's announcement. Whatever was said behind those closed doors remains unknown. But after that meeting, Peter emerged changed, resolved, solemn, and ready. The next time the world saw him, he was holding the letter in his hand and the monarchy's fate in his other. But to understand the weight of this command, we must go back to its author, a king haunted by war, scandal, and paranoia. Behind his stoic public image, King George VI was a man consumed by fear. Not just fear of Nazi bombs, but fear of his own bloodline in the aftermath of his brother's abdication and the chaos it unleashed. George crafted one final act of control, a command forged in secrecy to be used only if the monarchy faced another internal threat. It was never about the enemy outside the gates. For George, the most dangerous threats to the crown always came from within. His brother, Edward VIII, had nearly brought down the monarchy with a single decision to choose love over duty. That betrayal had left a scar on George's soul that never healed. Elevated unexpectedly to the throne, plagued by self-doubt and a profound sense of responsibility, George became obsessed with safeguarding the future of the monarchy, no matter the cost. He trusted few. He forgave even fewer. And as the war consumed Europe, he began crafting a private doctrine that would outlive him. A doctrine designed not for global threats, but for bloodline insurrection. George's paranoia turned inward. He became increasingly fixated on what he called wild blood, a phrase he often used behind closed doors to describe branches of the family he feared could disrupt succession again. His reign may have been steady in the public eye, but behind palace walls, he quietly convened with Church of England leaders, senior courtiers, and two loyal historians to draft what he considered a moral safeguard for the throne. These meetings, conducted in secrecy and never recorded in official minutes, gave birth to something that would later be known only by whispers: the Vault Directive. It was a document unlike any other, not legislation, not law, but something more dangerous, a personal command sealed with the signatures of the monarch, the Archbishop of Canterbury, and the royal legal custodian. It was binding in intention, if not in law. And it was buried deep, meant to be seen only if the monarchy faced what George called a legacy fracture. The directive laid out a chilling clause. Should any future royal descendant knowingly deviate from sovereign loyalty, abandon royal duty, or undermine the institution's integrity through actions public or private, they could be quietly removed from the line of succession without public acknowledgement. No trial, no ceremony, no explanation owed. It was, at its heart, a control mechanism, a failsafe against another Edward, another crisis of succession that would humiliate the crown. And though the document was written in vague, almost biblical language, there was no mistaking its intent. It was a king's final insurance policy against the unpredictability of blood. George died believing he had done the right thing, that he had built something that would protect the crown long after his voice fell silent. But the command, once sealed, was forgotten until now. Because as the monarchy reels from modern fracture, as loyalties are tested and lines redrawn, the Vault Directive has found its relevance once more. And decades later, that very command found new life, targeting a prince who dared to walk away from the crown. This wasn't a command written about Harry, this was a command that predicted him. In a spine-chilling twist, King George's document doesn't just describe a hypothetical rogue prince, it names him. Not directly, but in code. a code that Peter Phillips claims to have cracked, and that the palace has desperately tried to silence. At first glance, the Vault Directive appeared abstract, deliberately elusive, but within the elegant prose lay buried phrases that held chilling precision. The second son of the sun, it read, shall bear the burden of choice. If he should depart from the fold of sovereign duty, if he forsakes the vows tethered to crown and creed, he shall forfeit the blood that binds him. Most dismissed it as symbolic. Peter Phillips saw a pattern. In the family tree, the second son of the sun can only mean one person, Prince Harry, the younger son of Charles, who is himself the son of the late Queen Elizabeth II. It was too specific to ignore. The phrasing matched not only Harry's place in the bloodline, but eerily mirrored the exact course his life would later take: his departure from royal duties, his public criticisms, his relocation to a new world. What's more disturbing is that the document contains a set of genealogical notations, handwritten by George VI in the Ma. RGNs seemingly benign at the time, but now chilling in hindsight. Little symbols next to specific family members, including a mark beside a future unnamed male heir. That symbol, Peter believes, aligns precisely with Harry's birth in the 1980s. It's as if George saw a shadow coming, a future fracture pre-written into the bloodline, and created a royal firewall decades in advance. The directive outlines a behavioral clause. Any prince who abandons the firm and crown is to be disavowed, their status erased, their lineage excluded from sovereign destiny. That clause doesn't merely point to exile, it points to erasure. A full revocation of royal blood. If enforced, it would mean Harry's children, Archie and Lilibet, would not only be stripped of titles, but could be formally recognized as outside the line of royal succession altogether. Peter's decision to decode and publicly interpret this was more than a revelation, it was a declaration, one that threatened to undermine the palace's control over the royal narrative. In response, royal archivists quickly dismissed Peter's interpretation, calling it speculative and emotionally charged. But their denials only raised more questions. If the document meant nothing, why had it remained locked in a private Windsor vault for so long? Why had its existence never been acknowledged until now? And most damning of all, why had it never been destroyed? The legal implications are staggering. If the directive is honored, it sets a precedent that the monarchy can retroactively disown its own blood through ancient, secret clauses. It reopens the debate about royal birthright and loyalty and challenges the very idea of what it means to be royal in the modern age. Suddenly, the drama between Harry and the institution is no longer just personal, it's constitutional. And if the document is used to legitimize his removal, the world won't see it as protocol. They'll see it as betrayal. As the storm brews, the royal family scrambles to respond, but inside the palace, alliances are fracturing. For Prince William, this was betrayal layered atop humiliation. For King Charles, it was déjà vu. Both men now face a decision that could forever redefine the monarchy, deny the document and risk more leaks, or accept its implications and sever Prince Harry forever. The revelation hit the palace like a lightning strike, but the true storm brewed behind gilded doors. William, whose public poise had masked years of inattention, erupted in private. To him, Peter's actions weren't just reckless, they were a declaration of disloyalty. After years spent trying to steady the royal ship post-Megxit, this sudden bombshell felt like sabotage. The carefully managed illusion of unity had been shattered, and worse, it had been done by family. William was livid. He reportedly lashed out at aides, demanding answers, demanding control, demanding silence. To him, this wasn't about truth. It was about the erosion of discipline, about someone crossing the line. But behind the fury lay something deeper, fear. Fear that the institution he was born to protect was being dismantled from within, and that the brother he once protected was now at the heart of its unraveling. King Charles found himself drowning in ghosts. This wasn't the first time he'd been forced to choose between the crown and his heart. But unlike the past, this time the stakes were permanent. The Vault Directive wasn't some idle curiosity, it was a knife pressed to the monarchy's throat. And Charles knew whatever he decided, history would remember. His love for Harry had always existed in the shadows of protocol. Quiet, private, sometimes broken, but love nonetheless. Yet here he stood again, cornered by tradition, surrounded by whispers pushed toward a verdict, and standing quietly beside him, Queen Camilla had already made up her mind. According to sources within the palace, she believed firmly that the institution was bigger than any single individual. Her stance, delivered in cold certainty behind closed doors, was that the rot had to be cut off cleanly, publicly and permanently. Within days, a secret summit was convened at Sandringham. Only a handful of senior royals were invited, and none were allowed to bring staff. What unfolded there remains hidden from public view, but the aftermath spoke volumes. Charles's birthday arrived days later, and Harry, who had once celebrated beside his father with laughter, was not only uninvited, but quietly scrubbed from the guest list. It wasn't official, it wasn't announced, but it was unmistakable. The message had been sent. Inside the palace, the emotional fallout was volcanic. Staffers whispered of purges, aides were fired without warning, some believed to be connected to leaks, others simply casualties of chaos. The royal press office went into overdrive, burying rumors, spinning silence, trying to shield the public from what insiders called a full-blown royal fracture. And, at the center of it all, Charles remained immobile, weighed down by the crushing weight of legacy and loss. For William, the time for sentiment had ended. For Charles, sentiment had nowhere left to hide. But while the royal men clash behind closed doors, one woman takes action in the open: Meghan Markle. She's been blamed, framed and shamed, but now Meghan strikes back. In an explosive exclusive with a Hollywood producer, she lays bare the monarchy's darkest secrets and hints that this document is only the beginning of what they tried to hide. The timing wasn't coincidental. Within days of Harry's quiet exclusion from Charles's birthday event and the royal summit at Sandringham, Meghan Markle re-emerged not through palace gates, but through a very different corridor of influence, the global media. Her interview wasn't just a sit-down chat, it was an orchestrated blitz, filmed under the radar, produced by a major streaming giant, and teased as a royal reckoning. And what she delivered was nothing short of incendiary. With measured tone and eyes that carried years of suppressed pain, Meghan revealed that King George's directive wasn't a standalone relic, it was part of a series. She claimed to have received word, through an unnamed source close to the royal archives, that multiple royal directives exist, each designed to protect the monarchy from internal disruption, but most shrouded in secrecy and written with chillingly selective language. But what shattered the internet was her allegation that the document targeting Harry was rooted in more than just loyalty. It was, she suggested, about bloodlines specifically, preserving a version of royal purity. Without using the word directly, Meghan pointed to what she called a quiet legacy of prejudice dressed as protocol, and then the bombshell, leaked correspondence from senior royal advisors allegedly dating back to 2016 warning of long-term instability should Harry proceed with a relationship that would alter public perception of the bloodline. The implication was unmistakable. Meghan wasn't just unwelcome because she was an outsider. Unwelcome because her very presence disrupted a hidden royal calculus. The interview then took a turn no one saw coming. Meghan opened a black folder. She didn't show its contents, but she described them. Memos, drafted speeches, redacted versions of the Vault Directive, and notes between key royal figures discussing reputational damage control strategies, should any of the documents ever leak. With a tight smile, she confirmed plans for a new docuseries, one that would move beyond her story and dive into the monarchy's hidden constitution. She promised that names would be named, and truths, long buried, would rise. But the fallout wasn't straightforward. The public was split. Some hailed her as fearless, a woman refusing to be silenced by an ancient institution. Others saw manipulation, timing, and self-interest. Was she protecting her family, or igniting a war to burn the bridges behind her? Yet perhaps the most surprising twist came off camera. Quiet reports emerged that Meghan had extended a private invitation to Peter Phillips. To talk, to compare notes, to perhaps align forces. Whether he accepted remains unknown. But one thing became crystal clear: the palace no longer controlled the narrative. Meghan had wrested it from their grasp and forced it into a new arena, one where emotion, power and truth collided for all to see. But while the world watches Meghan and Harry retaliate, the focus suddenly shifts to an unexpected royal figure, Prince George. Innocent, yet burdened, Prince George now becomes the silent centerpiece of a legacy war. Because if King George's command holds true, then George's future is tied to the erasure of his uncle forever. And behind palace walls, that truth weighs heavily on his father. What was once abstract, a sealed directive, a distant controversy, has now bled into the next generation. Prince George, just a boy to the public, has become a symbol of succession, expectation, and the impossible choices made behind velvet curtains. William, sensing the rising tide, has accelerated his son's royal conditioning. Duties once meant for later years have begun now. Etiquette sessions, historical briefings, constitutional instruction. The goal to prepare him for a throne that may arrive sooner and with more complexity than anyone imagined. But while the public sees polished smiles and family portraits, those close to the palace whisper a different truth. That George's schedule has changed, that his tutors have been instructed to limit exposure to outside media, particularly anything connected to California. That once routine check-ins with Uncle Harry, virtual or otherwise, have been quietly shut down. Inside those marble walls, separation has become strategy. But not all are convinced. One royal tutor, recently dismissed, leaked a message that sent shockwaves through the institution. "The boy is carrying too much too soon," it read. "He doesn't just sense the pressure, he fears it, and perhaps he has reason to." Because among the portraits and lessons, George is also hearing the whispers about the feud, about the document, about the fact that for him to ascend cleanly, his uncle may need to be erased not just from protocol but from memory. And that conflict, however delicately handled, is already taking root. William, once torn between duty and love for his brother, now finds himself repeating a pattern he once swore to break. The same silence his own father showed, the same suppression of emotion that haunted his childhood. But ghosts have a way of returning. Diana's name has begun surfacing in hushed tones within the staff. Some say George is starting to remind them of her, curious, emotionally perceptive, and quietly questioning the structure he's being asked to uphold. And the parallels grow more unsettling by the day. Insiders recall seeing William and George after a private service, walking alone through a restricted wing of Windsor. William, visibly emotional. George, unusually quiet. Later, sources claim the boy asked his father a question that left him motionless. "Will I have to choose, like you did?" That question now lingers in the corridors of power, unspoken, unanswered. Because the truth is, George may not have a choice at all. His destiny has already been shaped by decisions made decades before he was born. By a directive buried in a vault. By a feud spiraling into a family fracture. By the silence of a father and the exile of an uncle. And the more the palace tries to shield him from it, the more it becomes clear he is already in the middle of it. And just when the monarchy thinks it can control the damage, a letter surfaces from beyond the grave. Locked away in her Balmoral study, Queen Elizabeth II penned one final note before her death, never meant for public eyes. But now it's here. In her own handwriting, she begs the future monarch to break the chain of sea. On troll King George set in motion. And to spare Prince Harry, the letter was discovered by none other than Peter Phillips, buried among estate files at Balmoral that had been untouched since the Queen's passing. Tucked behind a stack of personal correspondence and labelled only with the initials ER, the note bore the Queen's unmistakable script. What began as a simple archival review turned into a revelation that could upend the entire moral architecture of the monarchy. In the note, Elizabeth reflects on the storm that followed Harry's departure, not with anger, but with sorrow. She refers to the Vault Directive as outdated and dangerous, calling it a remnant of fear-driven tradition that no longer belongs in the world her grandchildren now inhabit. It's a startling departure from the stoic image she maintained in public. This was a woman who had always shielded the crown. And yet here she was, warning it from beyond the grave. What makes the letter even more haunting is the emotional weight it carries. She admits regret. Regret for not intervening sooner when Harry and Meghan were under siege. Regret for how swiftly the firm closed ranks, and most painfully, regret for the silence she kept, knowing full well how it could be misinterpreted. She doesn't absolve Harry completely, but she does something no one else in the royal machine has dared to do. She extends him grace. She urges Charles and William to lead with forgiveness, not fear. She pleads with them to see beyond the breach and into the heart, and with every line, the divide between legacy and humanity deepens. Although the palace quickly moved to downplay the letter's authenticity, a respected royal historian stepped forward to confirm it was genuine. The ink, the seal, the phrasing, it all matched Elizabeth's personal style. Yet, even as experts validated it, Buckingham's press office refused to acknowledge it. No statement, no confirmation, just silence. Which, in the context of this monarchy, speaks volumes. Because if the Queen herself warned against this ancient decree, if she begged her son and grandson not to enforce it, then what does it mean if they do? What does it say about the institution when even its longest reigning figure tried to stop the machine and was ignored? But it's her final line that chills the soul. A sentence written with the shaky weight of time and wisdom. If we silence one voice today, we may lose the entire choir tomorrow. It is a prophecy, a warning, and perhaps a farewell not just from a monarch, but from a grandmother trying, even in death, to hold her family together. But the clock is ticking. The monarchy must decide, uphold the past, or embrace a dangerous new future. Everything now hangs in the balance. Peter's reveal, George's command, Elizabeth's plea, it all collides into one impossible decision. Will the monarchy break tradition to salvage a broken family, or will it sacrifice Prince Harry to preserve the own? Inside Buckingham Palace, the atmosphere is stifling. Behind thick doors and drawn curtains, legal advisors gather in urgent sessions, poring over the faded parchment of King George's command. The questions they face have no precedent. Is the Vault Directive binding? Can a monarch's personal decree override the unwritten laws of royal succession? Can blood be erased by ink? One senior legal figure reportedly called it the most volatile royal crisis since the abdication. The weight of history bears down as they attempt to translate legacy into law. Meanwhile, beyond the gates, the public has reached a boiling point. Protesters line the palace perimeter, some waving signs that read, "Stand with Harry," others demanding that tradition must be upheld. The House of Windsor is no longer merely a family, it has become a battlefield of ideals. Half of Britain demands compassion, the other half demands order. In the eye of the storm, Harry remains quiet. But insiders whisper of a possible final move, one that could sever his last ties to the monarchy. Rumours swirl that he's considering renouncing his title completely, not as an act of defiance, but of liberation. And just as the palace prepares for the fallout, an unexpected offer arrives not from aides or lawyers, but from William himself. After months of silence and tension, the heir to the throne proposes a private reconciliation. No press, no cameras, just the two brothers behind closed doors. But Harry, now cautious and scar-red, agrees only on one condition: the Vault Directive must be destroyed. Not buried, not ignored, destroyed. For him, it's no longer about titles or status. It's about truth, and whether his family is willing to dismantle the system that once targeted him. The firm fractures under the weight of that choice. Some believe the Queen's letter must guide the future, that her plea for forgiveness should end the cycle of silence. Others cling to tradition, arguing that dismantling a royal decree, especially one from a revered wartime monarch, would set a dangerous precedent. Even Charles, moved by his mother's haunting words and torn by his son's divide, struggles to impose unity. His advisors argue, his wife advises caution, but his heart is no longer silent. In the quiet of his private study, Charles picks up a pen. With slow, deliberate strokes, he writes a letter not for Parliament, not for the press, but for his son. The ink is fresh, but the weight of it feels ancient. When he's finished, he folds the paper and seals it with wax. No aides are called, no media alerted. Instead, a trusted courier is summoned, handed the envelope, and given just one destination, Montecito. The courier rides into silence. The world waits for a verdict, and the monarchy once again faces the storm of its own making. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.